2000, we bought an abandoned 100-acre farm in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. We spent years cleaning it up, built a new house, and now are trying to make it a functional homestead farm. Welcome to Red Toolhouse.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Red Toolhouse. As Kelly often says, what the heck is going on around here? Well, I'm going to tell you. This is what we've got going on. So I teased this a little bit on Facebook. You saw a picture of 3 of these blue barrels in the back of the side-by-side. But here's what we've got going on. As you've seen in our previous videos, we've tapped our maple trees and we're obviously extracting sap to make maple syrup. Well, we want to make a homemade evaporator. Now again, you can buy these really nice evaporators. Some of these guys that have these really nice sugar shacks have some serious evaporators, really nice things. But we're not going to go that far just yet. What we're going to try to do is we're going to use a camp stove conversion, which if any of you have seen these, you can get these at Rural King, Tractor Supply, Amazon. And these are actually pretty simple. Just a little door, a little damper, and some legs. And you just convert an existing 55-gallon drum into a wood stove. And of course, it's obviously on its side. But you put the door in the face here on the top, or what's the front of the barrel. And you put legs on it, and you put a opening for the flue and the damper. And then, of course, you have to buy your stovepipe. So we're going to do that, make that a wood burner, but we're going to take it one step further, and we're going to add these stainless steel steam trays, like you would see in a Chinese restaurant or a buffet or anything like that. Those are just steam trays. And what we're going to do, again, imagine this is on its side as a wood burner. We're going to cut large openings in this, so these trays will fit down in there, and it'll be a primary and secondary evaporator bin. So we can take our cold sap and put it in the first one, and then obviously transfer that to our one that we've got to boil, so we can keep from losing our boil there. So that's going to be our goal. And to be honest with you, I've never used this camp stove conversion kit, so we'll just see how it goes. So let's dive into it. I decided to move into the garage because I'm sick of freezing my butt off. So what are the tools and supplies we need to do this job? Well, we're going to look at the instructions, and they tell you what tools and supplies you need, but we'll see how that goes. First, obviously, you need a 55-gallon drum. Now, this is a metal drum. You can see there, a little Chevron logo. This had Dello Gear EP5SA 80W90 gear oil in it. So, full of all kinds of good stuff. Now, obviously, we're not putting food in this, so this isn't an issue. In fact, we're going to build a fire in this. So we'll be able to burn all that out. In fact, we'll probably end up burning off most of the paint as well, because I guarantee you this isn't high heat paint on these drums. So where do you find these? I actually found all the ones that I got on Facebook yard sale. See, a lot of these things are just like IBC totes or the blue barrels. You can find them all over the place. So just search around. I think I paid $13 a piece for these, and I got 3 of them. Well, the camp stove kit I purchased is... I know you can get them at Rural King. I know you can get them at Tractor Supply. I got mine from Amazon. And interestingly enough, they all run about $50, which for this much cast iron, you'd think that wouldn't be the case. But this ain't your mama's cast iron, so it's not heavy duty by any means, but it's not necessarily super cheap either. But if we look at it here, see, like this is the door, so you can kind of see the thickness of that door there. And a little latch. Little attachments there for the hinge pin. This is the frame, of course, so it has a little damper there that you can adjust your air intake, airflow. So kind of nice. So we've got the door and the door frame. We also have our flue adapter and damper. So this comes apart, obviously. The love of peat, people. So again, this mounts, you can see there's it's got a curve to it. Let's see if I can get that closer to the camera there. See, it's got a curve in the flange there. So that's to go on the top of the barrel. the back. So obviously that's where your smokestack is, your chimney. And of course has a little damper in here, so you can damper that or flue, whatever the proper term there is. And then of course it has 2 sets of legs. That way you definitely do not want a wood burner that's round on the bottom and just rolls around. So it's got some cast legs there as well. Those little brackets. And of course comes with the hardware. What it does not come with is the stovepipe you need for your chimney. And we're going to be doing this outside. So stovepipe, really the only reason to have a stovepipe is of course to create a draft. You want to be able to have that draw the smoke out, get the fire going. Have air coming in to really get that fire revved up. And the third component, of course, is our trays. Now I got these from Amazon, and these are, I think you can get 24 gauge or 22 gauge. And I went ahead and bought the 22 gauge because I was a little worried about the 24 not handling the high heat, since we're really going to be putting some fire to this. And I believe these are the large ones. These are the 12 by 24, I believe. And there's 2 of them. And I believe they were on sale, regularly $90-some, and I think I got them on sale for $60. So there we go. So those 2, again, we're going to cut those and drop them in. So what tools do we need? Well, we obviously need to cut holes in this metal. So you can use a drill and a hacksaw, which that would take forever. You can use a grinder and a reciprocating saw, which is what I'm going to use. Or if you have a torch, you could obviously use a torch. If you're using a torch, please, please, please make sure you know what was in your drum, because if you're using high heat to you cut that metal and you've got something in there that was combustible, do not blow yourself up and say, hey, Troy told me to do this and I blew myself up. So I'm just warning you in advance. Again, this has gear oil in it, or had gear oil in it, so I'm in good shape there. But we're definitely going to take the caps off as well. We're not going to have this barrel be unvented. We're not going to have it be unvented when we go to start cutting on it. So I'm going to go ahead and unscrew this lid now. I'm going to let her breathe. Okay. Well, our first step is to mark off the opening that we need for our door. And as you can see, this would be the opening for the door, obviously, so no big deal to trace around there. But down here where you have your damper, we need to, we're not going to cut these little individual slots out. We're just going to cut a larger slot out, something that represents roughly this rectangle, making sure we leave material there so that these bolts can obviously attach. And the instructions talk about making sure to cover up this smaller vent here, that you go ahead and plan on cutting it out. They don't want you to necessarily be this high up. So, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to center it up here on this lower vent. And not that I'm totally OCD, but I do want this to be somewhat level. Alrighty. And then I'm going to take my Sharpay. I'll trace out. Then I'm just going to trace the outside-most rectangle here on both sides. And basically know that I'm going to take a straight shot here. Now obviously I get to that little bulkhead area, that's going to be fun, so we'll have to play with that a little bit. So to get this cut started, like I said, I've got a reciprocating saw. To get this going, I'm going to make the first series of holes with the grinder, so I can plunge down in there and then of course finish it off with the reciprocating saw. Alright, so to do this, we want to make sure, of course, we have the proper protection. I've got some leather gloves here, some eye protection, a little face shield going on. And let's get to cutting. Okay, so I got it started with my grinder there. Like Otis the town drunk, trying to cut a straight line here. Well, some of you have commented in the past about how I'm transparent and show how the ups and downs of homesteading. Well, I didn't show that. That was ugly. It's like some deranged diamond-toothed beaver went to town on this thing. Whew! Mercy. Somebody needs to practice their metal cutting skills. So anyway, yeah, wouldn't run my hand down the edge of this because you would be missing a couple fingers, but we got it cut out to shape there. And I didn't blow myself up, nor did I cut a finger off. So what next? Let's make sure my tracing still work here. Here we go. A little bit outside the lines. I never did good in kindergarten when it came time to coloring. But the point was, I thought was kind of interesting, this would be one of my criticisms for this, if they would have moved these bolt holes over here, and not right here in the corner, you could have really just cut this out as a square. But since it's so close to the to that, if you'd cut a square, you'd come right to the very edge of those attachment points, so that would have been kind of poor. After looking, I went ahead and just cut this out. There's no reason. You can see here where I tried to cut around that, and you leave this bit of material there. Well, it was getting beat to death so badly with reciprocating saw, it wasn't going to be worth anything anyway. And again, the only attachment points are here on either side. And I did have to go ahead and grind off that last little bit of that bulkhead for this vent to go into. So did grind that down so it fits flush and not be raised up there. All right, so let's start drilling holes. Well, so the only information that the instructions give us about the hardware that came with it is just use the hardware that came with it. So we don't have, they don't tell us what size our bolts are, but since we're provided with bolts and nuts, and of course our hole just has to allow this bolt to pass through, so the outside diameter of the bolt isn't that important. We're just going to find a drill bit that's just a little bit more wider than that. There we go. Looks like a 9/32. Yeah, like I put my drill bits back in the right spot. That's funny. Okay, take our Sharpay and we will just mark our holes. Now I'm going to use my uncle's, my great uncle. I've mentioned him in the past. Love that man dearly. He passed quite a few years ago, but he gave me a ton of tools, and there ain't nothing like hand-me-downs. This is a Black & Decker, and this is when Black & Decker actually made tools. So this is really a Black & Decker. This isn't the crap Black & Decker you get these days. This sucker, I think you could drill through the side of a tank with this thing. Now watch, I'll end up breaking it right here in the middle of this. My drill is so old it requires a chuck. It's a man's drill right there. Now the instructions actually recommend before you put the door in, before you mount the door, go ahead and attach the legs, since you've got the largest opening that you can stick your hand in there. So, like a good boy, I'm going to follow the instructions. Pretty simple here. Now, those of you watching are probably going to think, oh my goodness, that is so offline because of the seam of the barrel. Well, what's funny is the seam of the barrel didn't line up with the openings of the lid and the breather hole. So I'm going to line it up based on that and not the seam of the barrel. If I really want to get fancy, take my pig tape. Every man should carry a pig tape with him wherever he goes. And we will measure the distance from the seam to the edge, 3 3/4, 3 1/4. 3 1/4, like I knew like I was doing.
She's got legs, she knows how to use them.
All right, so we got our legs on there. And one little tip I'd recommend is when you go to put that back set of legs on, you may not want to put them all the way in the back simply because you run out of arm length. To take my child and stuff him in there to put them on. But yeah, so it's pretty sturdy. Good to go there. So next thing, obviously before we put the door on, we're going to put the attachment here for the stovepipe, the flange, and we want to line that up. Now the thing I've got to watch is with my trays, when I go to put those on there, I want to make sure that I'm not too far forward on this. So I'm going to try to put this back as far as possible and may even get into the lip. So I may have to not put this back flange bolt in because I really need to be back there as far as possible. Because when I lay these out, obviously I can let that hang over that flange. That'll help even provide more stability for it. So as long as I've got enough to cover it, yeah. So I've got enough and even a little bit of material there inside. Because I can have the lip of this tray actually hang over the lip of this barrel. No big deal. Obviously I can't cut into that lip anymore. I end up cutting it off. So I'll have a cut here that this tray will fit down in. Again, the tray doesn't have to be airtight fit with the cut, but you want to try to make that opening as small as possible or as tight as possible, simply because you wasted heat coming up around the sides of it. Again, in the grand scheme of things, not that big of a deal. It's not like it has to be airtight. I'm not building a clock here. But again, I want to line up my flange to my door so it's not coming up sideways. So we'll just visually inspect that. Again, I'm going to put a little X right here because I'm not going to drill that guy. I'm not even going to try to put a bolt back in there. I think we'll be fine. Now the real trick, we'll see how do we going to cut this sucker out.
You left-handed people out there, do you ever feel like you're a left-handed person living in a right-handed world?
Okay, so I've got the damper flange installed, or I've got the pipe flange installed, and I've got the damper in place. This thing is a little bit interesting. There's a spring-loaded handle here that obviously you're supposed to push in, lock it in so you can work the damper. Obviously the hole that I cut, a little jagged, so that's resisting that a little bit. But that looks like that's the way it's supposed to go. There's a curve in this portion of the handle that locks in against this cast iron. Any of you guys have used this before and you're familiar with it, let me know let me know in the comments below if I don't have this lined up right. But it does seem to open and close. So again, you're not going to be doing a whole bunch with that, especially the way we're going to be using it for outdoor burning for cooking down sap. So it's not that big a deal. So the last thing we need to do is put the door on it. Get everything to line up here. There we go. So as you can see, we've got a nice little wood burning stove there with a door. The instructions say to put about 2 inches of sand in the bottom of it, which is something I would definitely do, especially since I got my seam down there. I want to protect that seam. Don't want it to get too hot, but a nice layer of sand in there will just protect that bottom and obviously be a good place to catch ash and all that type of stuff. So the next step is cutting the barrel to put the trays in. Now, I've been looking at all kinds of different ways people do this. And some of you guys, I really appreciate the comments that we've got on the maple tapping video. Where guys had commented about different ways to do this and suggestions. Like I said, I'm new at this, so this is the first time for me. But I've seen different evaporators where they're using one big flat pan. And again, I understand the physics of that. The more surface area you can get heated up, the faster you can boil that water, boil that sap. Some other examples I've seen where people use a 2-tray system. So this is the one that you've got, whichever one, it doesn't matter. Maybe the front one, you've got your boil really rolling in it. And this is the one that you're adding new sap to. That way you're not killing your temperature in here and killing your boil. You can always keep a boil rolling. So you're always adding new sap to this. It gets up to a certain temperature, and then you can obviously ladle it over into here so it doesn't take away your boil. So in exchange for the surface area, I'm getting the ability to keep the temperature up. So I don't know. I mean, you comment below if you guys have experience in this and you've seen one way work better than the other. But this is the plan I'm going to go with here. So what we got to do is, of course, cut holes. Again, we don't want this to try to rest on the lip of the barrel. Since it's a curved barrel, we don't want to try to get it to rest on that. We're actually just going to cut out a spot and bend down some of the edge of the metal there that it makes a little bit of a lip. So we really want the tray to sit down in there and rest on either end. So the cut barrel holds it like this, and there not necessarily be a contact point here. Now we want to go deep enough that this isn't super proud. We don't want it just to be sitting up this high. Obviously we want the flame to try to come in contact with as much of the bottom as possible. So that's where we're going to go next. Okay, so I got my depth cut out, and what I realized I need to score these ribs here because you're not bending that very easily without that being scored. Turn it around here. So with taking my grinder and scoring those little ribs there, that allows it to be more pliable. And I can just push it right down there. So now let's see what that gives us. There we go. That's scary. That's almost like I knew what I was doing. So what you can see is there's really not a lot of gap. And obviously we want to keep the heat coming up around the trays as much as possible. Getting all that in. Obviously there'll be a little bit of escape around those scores there at the ribs, but that should hold up pretty well. I'm kind of pretty excited about that. Well, all in all, I can say it worked. It actually came out the way that I expected it to. Now, obviously with all these cuts I've made in this barrel, it's not super sturdy. So if you wanted to come back and try to weld some reinforcements there, that would work. The thing I would say about this, all of these components are not made to be out in the weather. So if you're going to use this year after year, then you're not really going to be able to leave it outside, or it's going to rust away quickly. I've seen these cast iron camp components rust like crazy. So So we're going to get a fire in it, do a test drive, and then start boiling some sap. So I appreciate everybody watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Red Toolhouse Farm. And we'll have a video very soon of us hopefully making maple syrup. Hopefully it tastes okay. So we'll see.